Local news, national news, even feel-good news. Delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
So right as we come on the air, I got an email that has breaking news of sorts. Breaking concert news. As it is announced that Missy Elliott is coming to the Kia Center on Tuesday, July 30th. And I know nobody ever believes me when I say this. Everybody thinks I'm kidding when I say this, but I love hip-hop and rap music. And I love Missy Elliott. I think she's great.
DJ, please pick up your phone. I'm on the request line.
Now, I know this is going to mess up the podcast because this is licensed music. So the podcast episode won't publish, right? I'm sure. You guys love Missy Elliott too, right? It's not just me. I feel like you guys are not into Missy Elliott as much as I am.
Maybe not as much as you, no.
And then there's, so I love that one. That's Work It. And then the other Missy Elliott song that everybody would recognize would be Get Your Freak On. This is in that Sprite commercial.
Hit me. Hit me.
And yeah, that's a different song than the song I just played. She got such a unique sound. I just love her sound.
Give me some new. Mississippi putting it down. I'm the hottest round. I told y'all can't stop me now. Listen to me now.
And I've never heard her songs that weren't clean versions. I've only heard the clean versions or the versions where the lyrics are backwards. I guess I just hear the radio versions. But presumably she has obscene versions of songs, right? I mean, I would think so. Taylor Swift does. I mean, if Taylor Swift drops F-bombs in songs, then, I would think Missy Elliott would, right? Is it just me? Probably just me. So I want you to hear something else as well. I don't know if you guys heard this story out of Pikesville. Where is Pikesville? I want to say it's Ohio. Hey, Google, where's Pikesville?
Pikesville, Maryland is 792 miles away.
Okay, so this is Pikesville, Maryland. And there is a high school athletic director and a principal that were disputing one another. They didn't get along. And the athletic director is a black man. The principal is a white man. It makes it comes into play here. And the athletic director had recorded audio of the principal using racial slurs. And the principal got fired for it. Well, the principal was adamant that he didn't say that. And usually, when you have something on tape and someone's like, no, I didn't say that. You're like, dude, I've got the tape. Of course you said it. Come to find out, the tape was artificially generated. It was an AI of the principal. Here's just a little bit of the news report from Pikesville, Maryland.
Results of the analysis indicated the recording contained traces of AI-generated content.
A major development in the viral and racially charged audio recording that led to the removal of a Baltimore County high school principal earlier this year. Good evening and thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala. Tonight, we are learning some new details on the arrest and the alleged motive behind this fake recording. Fox 25's Alexa Ashwell joins us live in studio with some of the details. Alexa?
Yes, Mary. Investigators believe this was a plot for revenge using artificial intelligence. Baltimore County Police say the principal, once in question, told investigators he believed the athletic director was targeting him. This investigation revealing just that in a way officials say the state has never seen before.
I seriously don't understand.
Tonight, a Pikesville high school principal vindicated.
The recording was not authentic.
And the school's athletic director now off the job and facing charges.
It's been determined the recording was generated through the use of artificial intelligence technology.
Okay, so I'm going to play for you the audio. It's 42 seconds. This is the audio in question. This is artificially generated audio of the principal using racial slurs. Now, I this is radio legal, but this is ugly language. So I would just caution you that this is ugly language that is used in this, but it was artificially created. Still ugly, still terrible language. But this is breathtaking that this kind of technology, A, exists, and B, is being used for nefarious reasons. So take a listen to this. Again, this is artificially created audio.
You know, I seriously don't understand why I have to constantly put up with these dumbasses here every day. Between these ungrateful black kids who can't test their way out of a paper bag, or these teachers who don't get it, how hard is it to get these students to meet their grade level expectations? Lawrence and Ravenel should have never been hired. And don't let me get started on DJ. I'm going to drag his black ass out of here one way or another. I'm going to get something to stick. I'm just so sick of the inadequacies of these people. And if I have to get one more complaint from one more Jew in this community, I'm going to join the other side.
That's it. That's the whole audio. That's amazing. Obviously we don't know the principal, but that's his voice. But those were not his words. And the black athletic director was the one who created the fake audio of the white principal to try to label him as a racist and a bigot and as an anti-Semite. I mean, I thought it was bad enough that at the end he throws in the Jew part, and I'm like, oh, he's an anti-Semite too. I mean, that is really, really remarkable. And for someone who makes a living based upon my voice, that scares the heck out of me. That is so scary. And I will tell you that I read our radio trade magazines. There are AI DJs in existence. None are employed by our company, to my knowledge. But there is an experiment that's taking place at a couple of radio stations where they have artificially AI DJs, and they do identify them as AI DJs, which I'm glad that they identify them as AI DJs, because at some point they won't. At some point there'll just be AI DJs and AI news anchors and news reporters and talk hosts. And the spread of artificial intelligence is really, really something.
Did you say tacos? Oh, no, talk hosts. Yes. Oh, never mind. I've got food on the brain.
Oh, tacos now sounds good. So yeah, that's pretty scary stuff there, and I'm glad that the police were able to figure that out, and now the principal has his job back. The athletic director doesn't have his job anymore, and the athletic director is facing serious criminal charges now for creating that audio and using it maliciously against the principal. I'm glad he's facing some serious charges now. So I just wanted to share that audio with you. All right, coming up in a few minutes, we got a lot to unpack here today as the DEA plans to reclassify marijuana. Trump once again vows to use the military to deport illegal migrants. We know that the White House now, there's been an analysis of all the mistakes that the White House has had to correct with Joe Biden. They've had to make 148 corrections just in 2024 of things that Joe Biden has said wrong, inaccurately, mistaken words, wrong words, whatever the case may be. And then we're going to talk about all these protests that are taking place on college campuses. So I'll have all that for you coming up in just a few minutes. Coming up next, all the stories that you missed while you were at work today. Don't nobody go nowhere. That's coming up next on The Joe Kelley Show.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Cash in on our 100th anniversary with the WDBO payroll payout. Your next chance at $1,000 happens tomorrow at 8 a.m. Listen for the keyword and then tap the payroll payout button in the WDBO app. It's our way of saying thank you for 100 incredible years.
This is Troy. Whenever you're using AI to mimic somebody's voice, in order to get them fired, that has got to be fraud. It's just terrible that people would do these kind of things instead of just handling it like a grown-up, like an educator.
Stepping out of the office elevator and into today's top stories. Here's what you missed while you were at work.
Well, Walmart made an interesting announcement today. They're closing all of their healthcare clinics. The U.S. retailer also announced it will end virtual care services. I was just at the Walmart in Hamlin this weekend, and I saw their healthcare clinic there. Hamlin, that's out in West Orange County, Winter Garden area. And I thought to myself, gosh, I wonder if people actually use that. Evidently, we know the answer. No, people don't use that, it seems, because they say it's just not profitable. New York Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan, that's the guy that's overseeing the Donald Trump trial, determined that the former president violated terms of a gag order intended to prevent him from lobbying public attacks on people involved in his criminal hush money trial. He has fined the president, and he ordered the president to remove a handful of Truth Social posts by 2:15 today. He did. Northwestern University announces it's reached a deal with pro-Palestinian protesters, ending an encampment of students and faculty, but allowing peaceful demonstrations to continue through June 1st. Women breast cancer screenings should start at the age of 40. That according to an expert panel saying that rising breast cancer rates in young women, and they're reversing guidance that most women should wait until they're 40. Columbia University threatens to expel student protesters who occupied an administration building overnight and into the day today. They still are occupying it, as a matter of fact. And a historic shift, the DEA is said to be moving towards reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug. And out of New Mexico, a military jet has crashed near Holloman Air Force Base. We're told it's an F-16 that has crashed. Rescue crews are on their way to the crash site at last check. It's unknown whether or not the pilot or pilots were able to get out of that jet safely. And then just moments ago, I just saw this. The Biden administration is now considering bringing certain Palestinians to the U.S. as refugees. According to CBS News, a move that would offer a permanent safe haven to some of those fleeing war-torn Gaza. You know, if their own neighboring countries won't take the Palestinians, why in the world would we take the Palestinians? I know why Biden would do this. I know Biden needs the Palestinian vote. Biden is getting it, frankly, from both sides, that he's not doing enough to help Israel and that he's doing too much to help Israel. He is caught in the middle, and he's making political decisions rather than smart decisions. Why in the world would we bring Palestinians to the United States? Of course, Joe Biden has not recognized that we already have an immigration problem as it is anyway. But now to bring Palestinians, what do you guys think about that? 844-580-WDBO. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. I just don't understand why, if Arab nations won't take the Palestinians, maybe they know something that we know, but we're looking the other way. That the Palestinians and Hamas are largely inseparable. And Hamas has made sure of that. How in the world would we know which of the Palestinians are Hamas sympathizers, Hamas members? How would we know? You know, they don't carry membership cards. They don't have a club. They don't have, any IDs that say proud member of Hamas since 2005. They don't have that. It just seems, to me, it just seems politically calculating on behalf of a presidential administration, a presidential campaign that is desperate to do anything to get enough votes to get reelected. And that's what they're doing. Speaking of which, the DEA, as I mentioned a moment ago, is going to reclassify marijuana as a less serious drug. Now, that doesn't mean that marijuana is going to be legal. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be federal laws about marijuana. It's just going to be, it is currently a Schedule I drug alongside drugs like heroin and ecstasy. They're going to move it to a Schedule III drug like steroids, testosterone, and ketamine. Special K, as they call it. So and while I don't have a problem with that, again, this is a vote buying scheme to do this right here, right now, just months away from the presidential election. This says Donald Trump vows to use the National Guard or other military troops to deport millions of illegal migrants if he's elected to another term of the White House. Now, I know that we recently talked about this. Within the last couple of weeks, we talked about this. And if you weren't listening to that show, my position on this is that's not going to happen. And it doesn't have to happen. We don't need to deport the illegal immigrants. You know, yesterday we just talked about how in the state of Florida, businesses are struggling to find enough immigrant workers because Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis made it harder for immigrants to get work permits, to be able to get jobs here in Florida. So they've all left Florida. That is a prime example of how we get the immigrants to self-deport out of the United States by fining and jailing businesses that employ them, by fining and jailing businesses that give support to illegal immigrants. They will leave the United States on their own without us having to pay for it, without the efforts of having, setting up camps and trains and ships and flights and everything else. They will self-deport just like they have done out of the state of Florida.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
Well, I was just watching video from USF, University of South Florida, over in Tampa, which I'll never understand how the University of South Florida is in Tampa, but that's neither here nor there. They just started tear gassing. Cops did. Riot-geared cops just started tear gassing the ne'er-do-wells that are protesting on the campus and have set up tents there. One of the ne'er-do-wells grabbed one of the canisters of tear gas and chucked it back at the cops, and the ne'er-do-well had a gas mask. You know, where do ne'er-do-wells get gas masks? I mean, do they sell those at Army, Navy, surplus? I'm sure you can get them on Amazon, but it is interesting that they have gas masks. These protesters do. And they seem to be very well supplied and, very well taken care of. And the protesters in Columbia, at Columbia University this morning, late last night, early this morning, they actually took hostages for a short period of time. They claimed they weren't hostages, but there was a cleaning crew. They broke in at 12:30 a.m. into the administrative building at Columbia University, and there was a cleaning crew there, and they didn't allow the cleaning crew to leave the campus. Honestly, this is just some of the most bizarre stuff that I have ever seen. How Columbia University is at this moment the absolute definition of the inmates are running the asylum. These pro-Hamas activists break into and occupy a building at Columbia. The White House has finally released a statement, by the way. It's worth noting that the statement does not come from President Biden. The statement does not come from official Joe Biden letterhead. The statement is not in Joe Biden's words, but from a Deputy Press Secretary, Andrew Bates, releases a statement that reads, President Biden has stood against repugnant anti-Semitic smears and violent rhetoric his entire life. He condemns the use of the term intifada, as he has the other tragic and dangerous hate speech displayed in recent days. President Biden respects the right to free expression, but protest must be peaceful and lawful. Forcibly taking over buildings is not peaceful, it is wrong, and hate speech and hate symbols have no place in America. So that again is Joe Biden trying to not alienate the vote of Arab Americans. That's Joe Biden trying to not alienate the vote of terrorist Americans. Not suggesting that all Arab Americans are terrorist Americans. Some are, though. So Joe Biden wouldn't dare make the statement himself if this was any other marginalized group. I mean, there would be a primetime White House address. But because it's Jews, not that big of a deal. Now, Columbia University has suspended a student leader of the anti-Israeli encampment after video emerged of him declaring that Zionists don't deserve to live. Kamani James was banned from the New York campus last week after remarks that he made back in January resurfaced online with a proclamation that he made that he fights to kill. He said, with regards to fighting a Zionist, I don't fight to injure or for there to be a winner or loser. I fight to kill. Asked by a university administrator if he could see why such a statement was problematic in any way, James said no. He is likening Zionists to white supremacists and Nazis, claiming they're all the same people. For those who don't know, a Zionist is someone who believes in Israeli nationalism, that believes in the Israeli homeland, that the Israelis were the chosen people living on land promised to them by God. That's what a Zionist is. But if you listen to these protesters, you get the idea that Zionists are something completely different. Something nefarious, something bad, something evil, something wicked. But it's not. It's just people who believe that Israel is the Jewish homeland. That's it. Meanwhile, here in Florida, the University of Florida said it's not a daycare after 9 people were arrested during pro-Palestinian protests on campus on Monday. See, this is so interesting because Columbia University set a deadline, and oh gosh, what was it? Was it noon or 2 o'clock or whatever it was Monday that that they gave him a deadline to by 2 o'clock they had to vacate the encampment. They had to take all the tents down. Well, that deadline came and went, and not only did they not back down, they escalated to the point where they're breaking into the administration building on campus and barricading the doors, smashing windows, smashing furniture, blocking windows, and occupying the buildings on campus. So Columbia University, basically what they're saying is, stop, or we'll yell stop again. That's it. That's it. That's all they're doing. Because it's a private university, it's a private campus, the police can't move in without the permission from school officials, and school officials are not letting the New York Police Department come in. They're blocking and the NYPD is ready to move in on campus, but they're being blocked from moving in by the school. The school doesn't want that. So they're letting the local security, their campus security, deal with this. Oh, they're doing a damn fine job, too. Very impressive. 844-580-WDBO. Let's go to Lake County. Robert is on the Joe Kelley Show. Hey, Robert, how are you?
Hi, Joe. Nice talking to you. What I was thinking is I think that the federal government should get involved on the student situation because most of these students, they have what they call a student visa. They supposed to revoke those visas and send them back to wherever they came from. And then when they realize that they have to behave like a student to take advantage of our education and a good education, they probably would reflect to themselves. But I think the best thing is to revoke their visa. Simple.
Robert, I think there's a lot of things that they could be and should be doing to penalize these protesters. I'm not even going to call them students because I don't know how many of them are actual students. This is a very broad group of people, and I dare not just refer to them as students. Are some of them students? Most certainly. Most certainly some of them are students. But many of them are protesters for hire. They literally, you can find ads in Craigslist, where they solicit people to come protest. And many of them probably haven't the slightest idea. They could not possibly articulate what it is that they are demanding. And, So the ones that aren't students should be arrested and trespassed. The ones who are students should be immediately suspended and expelled and trespassed so that they can't come back on campus. But the school is unwilling to do that. The school is like Joe Biden. They don't want to take a side. They don't want to take sides here. They're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. Except for the Jews. They don't mind. They've clearly not taken the side of the Jews. They just don't want to offend the protesters. They don't care about offending the Jews.
I think the federal government should use the process revoking their visa, which will be a way of selecting, use the process of elimination. Okay, these are the students. Okay, are you on campus? You have a visa? That's it. You're going back. Your visa is revoked. And you're going to start eliminating all this. Then you're going to start getting something which is a leftover crowd.
Yeah.
That they're not neither students. They are neither faculty. They are nobody. They're there just to cause problems.
No doubt.
Now you have to arrest them.
You bet. Robert, thank you so much. Let's go to Orlando. Ray is joining us, putting the Ray on the radio. Hey, Ray, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just getting frustrated. I got a question for you. I heard in earlier reports that there were janitors that were in there when they went in and they're not allowed to leave.
So that is true, and this was janitors who said so. So there was a cleaning crew because they went at 12:30 a.m. is when they overtook the building. And there were 3 janitors on duty when they made entry into the building. To my knowledge now, all 3 of the janitors have been let go, but for a period of time, they were not allowed to leave. So for a period of time, they were effectively being held hostage or kidnapped for, I don't know what that period of time was. But it does, I do not believe that there are still people there against their will, but for a short period of time, there was. 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
Hey, Joe. So I agree that the New York City Police Department could probably handle this. But I would also say that once they took people hostage or refused to let them go, whatever, isn't kidnapping a federal crime? That should be a kidnapping charge. Whether they let them go or not, they kidnapped them. They held them hostage. That's a federal crime. So I think they need to just go in there and, like that other guy said, take away their visas. Screw them.
So kidnapping is only a federal crime if interstate commerce is affected or if you cross state lines, neither of which is the case here. So the kidnapping would be a local crime, and I think the more appropriate charge would be, hang on, I just had it in my mind, and let's see, wrongful incarceration. I believe that's what they call it. When you keep somebody against their will, wrongful incarceration.
False imprisonment?
Thank you. That was what I was looking for. False imprisonment would be the actual charge. Greg Rhodes, FTW, for the win. All right, 844-580-WDBO. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Coming up, we'll also talk about the puppy killer, Kristi Noem. We've got more follow-up on, for those who hated that I talked about it yesterday, you're going to hate that I'm talking about it today even more, I'm sure. So hang on, we'll have the latest on the puppy killer coming up in the next segment. Stay with us.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, from the Bogan Munz & Munz WDBO Traffic Center. Auto accident? Choose Bogan Munz & Munz.
Well, we're still looking at that crash on the 528 as well. This is westbound at the Turnpike. It's on the right shoulder, but it's still causing some delays as you're making your way toward I-4. I'll give you a full traffic update in just a few minutes. ProTech Air Conditioning and Plumbing Service for honesty, integrity, and 100% customer satisfaction. Call ProTech 407-502-6263 or visit ProTechAC.com. From the WDBO Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Talk and discussion on the latest breaking national news.
Crude oil prices continue to fall.
Local news.
You're not going to have Disney have its own government in Central Florida.
And stories that matter to you. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let your voice be heard on the Joe Kelley Show.
I want you to hear this report that was just filed on Fox News. Special report with Brett Baer, and it is about the Columbia University. What an embarrassment! I have never been so embarrassed for a university in my life. I thought my college, my alma mater, Lamar University, was the most embarrassing school out there. But Columbia University now takes the cake. Take a listen.
But first, breaking tonight, a major escalation in the standoff between anti-Semitic, anti-Israel protesters at Columbia University and the school administration and the police. At this hour, demonstrators are occupying a building on campus and have issued a list of demands as conditions for leaving. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and the New York Police Commissioner plan to hold a briefing shortly. We'll dip into that and bring you some of that. First, correspondent Alexis McAdams is at Columbia University again tonight. Good evening, Alexis.
Brett, good evening from New York City. You can see it here behind me. There are dozens of protesters right in front of the gates here at Columbia University chanting and holding signs demanding that the university divest from Israel, saying they're not going to clear out of here until they get the list of demands. This all comes after chaos here at Columbia last night where students smashed through glass with hammers and took over a campus building. Watch. Now the university says those students who broke into the building and damaged property will be expelled. You can see the group breaking the glass and entering Hamilton Hall, telling the university they're not going to leave until possibly graduation. The NYPD remains on standby.
We will not go onto that property until we get a specific request for Columbia University. And as of right now, we do not have that request. So this is where we stand right now.
Brett, although the campus says they're cracking down, the students seem pretty comfortable, okay? How comfortable? Well, you can look here and see that the group was using a rope this afternoon to pull up food and supplies in a crate. There's also wooden chairs on the roof, and student protesters are sitting on the balcony, even bringing up plywood boards. Many students I talked to say the university and the president here need to take action immediately.
certainly the folks who were involved with the several felonies that occurred last night not only should be facing sanctions from the university, but from the police. I mean, you can't assault people. You can't break into buildings. You can't do the things they were doing. The police have an obligation to step in.
And so the protests here continue here at Columbia University. The school says they're going to take action and expel those students, but we haven't seen it come just yet. They also talked about suspensions at this point, but we don't have a number on that. But you can see there from those aerials, this is going to continue here for we don't know how many more days, Brett.
Yeah, they're nearing their summer break and graduation. So at some point, one would think that they would have to move in and do something. So these protesters have literally taken over the administration building. They have blocked the doors. They have blocked themselves in, and so the administration is feckless. They're doing nothing about this. As the reporter there, Alexis, said, you know, the school says they're going to expel them. Well, don't just say you're going to expel them. Expel them. And the NYPD is not even allowed on campus because it's private property. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, here in Florida at USF, University of South Florida in Tampa, which is not in actual South Florida. I guess I'm nitpicking at this point. They deployed tear gas today to break up, and just within the last hour, actually, they deployed tear gas on the protesters. They're not having it here in Florida. Thank goodness our schools are doing something about these protesters.
Hey, Joe, these idiots that have taken over one of these buildings at Columbia, I think the best course of action is to allow them to barricade themselves in. We put up siege works on the outside so nobody gets out without going through law enforcement. Negotiate for the hostages to be released. And like I said, once they've cut off the water and electricity and they run out of food, I think they're going to change their tune. Well,
they're not going to be able to run out of food because, as you heard during that report, they're having food delivered to them, not in a sense that you and I would have food delivered. They've got plastic milk cartons and a rope, and they're up on the balcony of this administration building and hanging out of windows above they got a beautiful big grand clock on the front of that building, and they're hoisting up with food that's in a milk carton and tied to a rope. They're hoisting that up to themselves, so they're getting food that way.
Hi, Joe. When do we, the American people, have any say into who comes into our country to live? November can't get here fast enough.
Boy, you are so right about that.
Now, since these people were held hostage or kidnapped, if they went to the police and pressed charges, then not only that the police would be able to go in and arrest these people, but also the university could be held as aiding and abetting.
So for those who didn't catch it in the last hour, maybe you're just tuning in, you're just joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. When the students broke into this building at 12:30, just after midnight last night, there were 3 members of the janitorial staff that were cleaning the administration building at the time, and for a period of time, I don't know how long the period of time was, but the janitorial staff was not able to leave. They were being held against their will, and then at some point they left. And by the way, I'd also mentioned that the janitorial staff was ultimately let go. And someone asked, do you mean let go as in fired, or let go as in they were released from being hostages? To my knowledge, they were not fired. To my knowledge, they were simply just let go as far as being hostages go. And whether or not they report to police, that's a good thought. I don't want to. I don't want to make assumptions here, but sometimes people on janitorial staffs have questionable legal status, and maybe they don't want to go to the police for fear of that, or maybe they're perfectly legal and they don't want to go to the police for fear of retaliation from the feckless administration of Columbia University. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Am I making you nervous every time I say feckless? Greg, I feel I feel like your blood pressure is going up when I say that.
I have a twitch in my eye after yesterday.
Right. Joe in Orlando is joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe. Good afternoon to you. I'm sure it's not in the technical, actual, literal sense, but all these students that stormed a building, broke property, and now they're occupying it, and blah, blah, blah. You know the story. Isn't that called an insurrection?
I will say that it certainly does resemble the events of January 6th, 2021. Yeah, they were smashing windows. It looks very much like what some of those protesters did at the Capitol on January 6th. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know that there would be any kind of insurrection charges, but certainly there is trespassing. There's destruction of public property, or in this case, private property. I mean, there should be plenty of criminal charges, and to think that the NYPD is literally staged just off the campus because they can't go onto the campus without permission from the university officials. That the university is protecting these hooligans, these terrorists who have taken over the school. The university president should be fired. The board of trustees should fire the president and then hand in their resignations. It is embarrassing how Columbia is handling this. I hope that there are repercussions for Columbia. I hope that families decide that is not a school that they want their children going to. The school has been taken over by terrorists. In the most literal sense. The school has been overrun by terrorists. Terrorists have taken the building. 844-580-WDBO. Angelo is in Daytona Beach. Hey, Angelo.
Mr. Kelley, how are you this afternoon?
Very good, thanks.
Quick question for you. So, why can't the police department not surround Columbia University on Columbia University property? But what about all the streets that lead to that property? Does it belong to Columbia University? We could stop all those people bringing food and supplies to the terrorists and cut off their main supply that way.
It's an interesting.
They have to be asked.
Yeah, that is an interesting thought, Angelo, and yeah, one wonders what the police can do. They obviously have their hands tied. But there certainly must be things that the police can do. I would think at the very least, and since 9/11, the New York City Police Department has their own intelligence unit, and I would be willing to bet that some of those protesters on campus are undercover police officers. So I'd be willing to bet that they're getting intel from the campus. There probably are federal agents that are undercover on the campus as well, much like there were federal agents undercover on January 6th. There were agents then and there are probably federal agents and local police on duty, undercover at Columbia University. 844-580-WDBO, or you can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Your take as we continue to monitor the situation there. The police are making a statement right now, and when we come back, we will tune in for part of that. So stay with us.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
All right, happening right now in Tampa, University of South Florida. Tear gas has been deployed there. And I just lost the, here it is.
We will be utilizing chemical munitions if you choose to stay.
So they're warning them that they're going to use chemical munitions, and they've already deployed the tear gas in Tampa for the terrorists who have been gathering on the lawn there and setting up their encampments there. Meanwhile, in New York City, they're doing absolutely nothing about the terrorists that have taken over at Columbia. And hang on, I got to get back to the right screen. Bear with me. Here we go. So the New York City Police Department has just started a news conference. And so I return back to Fox News here. And Brett Baer is joining the news conference late, so he's getting us caught up with the beginning of what we missed so far.
New York City's mayor and police commissioner briefing reporters on the situation at Columbia University. Just to briefly sum up what we've heard so far, the mayor saying peaceful protests have clearly been co-opted by external actors hijacking this protest. They're going to show examples of these external actors who have no affiliation, they say, with Columbia University. Serious public safety issues at these protests. He tells the protesters to leave the area now. Leave the area now. Parents and guardians, call your students, call them to tell them to leave now for their safety and the safety of others. He goes on to say the external actors are not students and they're trying to create chaos and discord. Walk away now. It must end. That from the mayor. Let's listen to the police commissioner.
These once peaceful protests are being exploited by professional outside agitators, and the safety of all students, faculty, and staff are now a concern. The right to protest and speak your mind is critical to our democracy, and the NYPD's job is to protect that right. We will never tolerate violence, property damage, or disruption of emergency services. And as we've said, once the university asks for our help, the NYPD will be there ready to assist them. Finally, to the parents, and I say this as a father of a college student myself, be aware of where your children are. Be aware of what they're involved in. And if you don't know, reach out to them. The university and the NYPD are taking the situation seriously. You should be taking the situation seriously too. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So as the mayor and the police commissioner have just been outlining, we've observed, and you all have as well, a really concerning escalation of activity associated with campus protests broadly, and in particular with Columbia University over the past 24 hours. And this escalation presents a real threat to public safety. So I want to make 2 points. One is to reiterate what the mayor and the police commissioner have mentioned, that these protests have been and are being influenced by external actors who are unaffiliated with universities, some of whom have been known to our department and others for many years for their dangerous, disruptive, and at times criminal activity associated with protests for years. So this is not about what's happening overseas. It's not about the last 7 months. It's about a very different commitment to, at times, violent protest activity as an occupation. A number of university partners have reported to us in New York and also across the country that significant portions of their protester populations are unaffiliated with their schools. They haven't got a right to be on campus, and this violates university policies. And most importantly, it presents dangers to students and to the whole university communities where it's happening. And second, we see an escalation in tactics. And when we see what we saw last night, I'm going to show you a few examples, and they exemplify some of the behavior that we're seeing in a much more holistic way. We think these tactics are a result of guidance that's being given to students from some of these external actors. So we see individuals in black bloc attire scaling buildings, breaking into windows, barricades being made out of furniture or being dragged from the lawn into Hamilton Hall, cameras that have been destroyed. And there's only one reason to destroy a camera. It's certainly not something anyone is taught to do in school.
You're listening to a live news conference from the New York City Police Department on the terrorist takeover of Columbia University. Where in the hell is Columbia University? They're not at this news conference. Where's the president of Columbia? Where is the president of the United States? Terrorists have taken over the buildings of an Ivy League college, and it is crickets out of the White House. This is utterly insane. The lunatics are running the asylum, and Columbia University is silent on this matter.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
By the way, nobody call me or text me or try to talk to me tonight after 8 o'clock. I'll be watching the basketball game tonight, 8 o'clock. What channel is that? Is that like on TNT or something like that? Or is it going to be on a real channel?
It's going to be on Bally Sports tonight in Orlando.
It's going to be on what?
Bally Sports. So that's the regional sports network that carries all the Magic games during the regular season. The first round of the playoffs, if it's supposed to be on NBA TV nationally, it's on Bally Network in Orlando.
Do I get that channel?
Probably not.
Wait. So you're telling me I'm not going to be watching the game tonight at 8 o'clock?
You can go to the bar with me if you'd like. Because I don't get the channel at home either.
Oh, man. Why am I just finding this out? I feel like...
Greg, if they win this game, when do they play again? Is it Friday?
Yeah, they'll play on Friday, I believe it is.
And so are all the games home or away on the Bally local network and nothing's on a major?
If the game is scheduled to be on TNT, which if it does go to another game, it will be a TNT game, it would be on televised TNT. But if it's on NBA TV, which is NBA's cable channel, it goes to Bally for their local broadcast.
All of these words are making me very upset.
It's like me with the Dolphins on NBC playoff football.
Why do they keep doing this to us?
Because we're sports fans and we'll pay it.
We won't. I will not.
Joe Kelley won't.
That's right. I will not.
Well, apparently neither will you, Greg. You're going to be at the bar.
Well, yeah, no. I like to support my local watering hole for games like that. So
well, you get to hang around a bunch of Magic fans too, I guess.
My wife does not particularly like me just watching basketball at full volume in the house. So yeah, no, I go out to watch it.
So in that case, feel free to call me or text me tonight after 8 o'clock because I will not be watching the Magic game. How frustrating. That's frustrating.
Yeah, no. Welcome to the Magic fandom so far this playoff, yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the terrorists. So terrorists have taken over the campus of Columbia University. Quite literally. I mean, these guys are terrorists. They're not students. Terrorists have taken over and if they are students, they're still terrorists. So I'm going to take a brief side trip here. We're going to go to Massachusetts for just a second, where at the Northampton Center for the Arts, there was an event called Queer Storytime for Palestine. Ooh, it rhymes. Queer Storytime for Palestine. And because it's Massachusetts, the bluest of the blue, a whole bunch of people brought their kids to hear a drag queen by the name of Lil Miss Hot Mess. Lil Miss Hot Mess at Queer Storytime for Palestine in Massachusetts. So here you're going to hear the audio of Lil Miss Hot Mess, a drag queen, at the Queer Storytime for Palestine, reading to kids and leading the children in a chant to free Palestine. Take a listen.
Today what we're going to do is we're going to shout, Free Palestine. Can I hear that? Free Palestine! If you're a drag queen and you know it, shout, Free Palestine! If you're a drag queen and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're a drag queen and you know it, shout, Free Palestine! Excellent.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
What in the actual hell is happening to our country? I'm not offended. I'm not offended that there's a drag queen. I'm not offended that there's a drag queen that is pro-Palestine. I'm not offended by any part of that, except that there are parents who think that's a good place to take your kids. Indoctrinating your children into drag queen culture, protest culture, and pro-terrorist culture. I'm gobsmacked. I can't even articulate thoughts. I don't understand what's happening to our country. I don't understand what's happening to humanity. I can't comprehend what we are doing to humanity. 844-580-WDBO. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Your take on the drag queen. If you're a drag queen and you know it, say Free Palestine. That's what he was saying to those children. And the children were having a great time. Children follow along for stuff like that. Shame on those parents for taking those kids there.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. From the jazz age to the information age, WDBO has been there. Join us in saluting a century of broadcasting excellence. Happy 100th WDBO, the soundtrack to Orlando's history.
Hey, Joe, what I don't understand about Columbia is that the reports early this morning that I think a maintenance worker said he was being held for a period of time against his will in the building they took over. That, at a minimum, is some kind of false imprisonment and most likely kidnapping. That's a crime that the NYPD and the FBI, for that matter, shouldn't have to wait to be asked to come in by Columbia University because it's a private institution.
Yeah, one would think. One would certainly think. Let's go to the Space Coast. Bob is on the Joe Kelley Show. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Joe. So the most ironic part of the story, regardless of your position on Palestine, is that the drag queen...
I know where you're going. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
...to free Palestine literally would be stoned to death.
Yes.
In Palestine.
Yeah.
By the elements that are uprising, which just makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't matter
it's crazy.
what your position is on that. This person could not do that there because they would not be allowed to exist.
You're absolutely right.
It just makes no sense what their end point is, because this wouldn't happen in Palestine because you'd be dead.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be accepted. So, use your freedoms wisely.
Absolutely right, Bob. What a great point. Thank you so much. 844-580-WDBO. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. This, as the Biden administration now wants to import Palestinian refugees.
This news exclusively on CBS News. The Biden administration is considering a plan to allow some Palestinian refugees to come here to the United States. That's according to internal federal government documents that were obtained by CBS's Camilo Montoya Galvez. According to the plan, some Palestinians fleeing the war would be offered a permanent safe haven here in the U.S. And one option under consideration is to allow those who have immediate family members who are either American citizens or permanent residents to enter the country if they pass various background checks first. The plans would require coordination with Egypt, which has so far refused to allow large numbers of people from Gaza to cross the border into that country. This news exclusively on CBS News.
If Egypt won't let them in, why in the hell would we take them in? Don't you think Egypt knows something about the Palestinians that they won't let them in? But Joe Biden is going to import terrorists into the United States because he needs the terrorist vote. How entirely terrible. Meanwhile, at the University of Florida, boy, they're not messing around there. They have cracked down on the trespassers and terrorists and protesters on their campus. They have already issued interim suspensions and banishment from the campus for 3 years. Protesters have been warned that clearly prohibited activities would result in such. The university spokesperson, Steve Orlando, what a great name, Steve Orlando, says this is not complicated. The University of Florida is not a daycare. We do not treat protesters like children. They knew the rules, they broke the rules, and they'll face the consequences. How is that for having a backbone compared to the feckless leadership of Columbia University? At Florida, they say, for days, the UPD patiently and consistently reiterated the rules. Today, individuals who refused to comply were arrested after UPD gave multiple warnings and multiple opportunities to comply. UPD is the University Police Department. It's nice to know that not all of the college campuses have weak, pathetic, feckless leadership like Columbia does. Columbia has been overrun by terrorists. I mean, there's no other way to put it. There's no other way to look at it. I am rarely speechless. I just cannot believe what we are doing to this country. I cannot believe what we're allowing to happen to the United States of America. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. What a terrible note to leave on. I'm Joe Kelley. Thank you so much for being a part of the Joe Kelley Show.